If you like music and you like podcasts and you like to laugh and you like to learn, you need to immediately subscribe to One Hit Thunder. Each week on the One Hit Thunder podcast, we dive deep into the story and back catalog of a one-hit wonder band or artist. From there, we have a good, healthy discussion as to whether they brought the one-hit thunder or were nothing more than a one-hit blunder. We have a huge back catalog, and we've done episodes on everything from Don't Worry, Be Happy and the Macarena to King of Wishful Thinking and Cumbersome. I promise you're going to love the show more than Jaquan loved getting tipsy, and even more than Bobby Boris Pickett loved making alternate versions of the Monster Mash. Subscribe to One Hit Thunder wherever you get your podcasts.
Aha! Hello, everybody. Welcome to my living room. Sorry to interrupt here, but I just got my pirate satellite transmitter hooked up, and I just wanted to try it out for a little while. So from now on, we're going to be playing the videos that I want to watch. So just sit back and relax, because this is ALTV!
All right, Matt, we have just finished breaking down all of In 3D, and after this album came out, a tradition that lasted for close to 10 years, maybe even more than 10 years, honestly, was unleashed upon the world, and that was ALTV, which he did twice before the Dare to Be Stupid album came out.
Yeah.
And I think to break down something that is just filled with some of the strangest, most abstract sketch comedy imaginable, there was only one person that we could possibly bring on this show to join us.
Yeah.
Patrick of SMOSH, thank you so much for joining us over here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so thrilled. I can't tell you how big an honor this is. I have such a deep love and affinity for Weird Al. I'm thrilled. I can't wait.
I have seen highlight reels of ALTV stuff, and there's like 2 or 3 moments out of these 2 episodes that like distinctly I know I've seen a million times.
Yeah.
I was not prepared for how crazy these were going to be. I was texting Matthew earlier and was like, this thing is either just home runs or whiffs with no middle.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was shocking. I finished watching this like seconds before we started recording this because it was longer than I thought it was. Actually, the 2 together. I mean, it's on YouTube, so for people listening to this, you can look this up on YouTube. We did note that it seems like a section of episode 2 is missing.
I'm assuming it got pulled for copyrights. I'm sure there was like an audio clip or something.
Whoever put this up on YouTube was smart enough to cut the music portions out of the episodes, so generally there's no copyright flags. But it seems like some part is missing. But even still with that, even with the videos removed, I don't know how much like each episode is like.
They're about 45 minutes.
About 45 minutes each. Yeah.
Each section. Yeah. Right about an hour. Yeah. I'm getting a phone call. I gotta go. I'm just kidding.
Well, that wraps up ALTV.
So the first one makes sense, right? The first one debuts April Fool's Day, 1984.
Yes, I did clock it. It was April Fool's Day. I didn't notice that at first, but then I saw.
Yeah, like let's give Al the airwaves for I believe about 3 hours ish with commercials and music videos.
Yeah.
First big chuckle out of me was just him doing the rocket sounds as they played the footage of the first like the launch that is infamously the MTV kickoff thing. Just the noise that he's making, and it's just the music choices and sound effect choices alone in these are absolutely brilliant.
It's incredible.
Now they play that rocket like 7 times in the videos that we watched, so at a certain point I was skipping a little bit, but
you guys are the official historians of Weird Al currently, right? You guys are like you know everything.
I'm not ready to take that title yet.
Yeah,
but when the podcast is over, yes.
This is it. This is you guys are going to be the ones.
Yeah.
So what is his age? Is he like 24 here?
He's definitely young as hell.
I think I did a little bit of math. I think he's either 23 or 24, which is so cool to me that it feels like a 24-year-old was given a television show is what this feels like. And like knowing that it's Weird Al is cool.
I think you're right. I just did the math myself. I think he was 24.
The tone that this reminded me of was when I was a kid. I loved watching E talk soup back when it was the John Henson years, where there was no live audience and it was just the awkwardness of him telling these jokes, and you would like maybe hear the cameramen and lighting guys chuckling a little bit, but like
right, yeah.
it just felt so lo-fi and like not what you're used to seeing when you see comedy being performed on television, because it's usually like a live studio audience at that time, or like something. It's SNL, it's Mad TV, like it's in front of something. So for there to just be this abstract weird comedy with silence behind it the whole time is so jarringly weird.
It's so great.
It feels very off the cuff, which, I mean, he's presenting it like it's off the cuff. Like, I love, like, in the first episode, I had not seen before, I don't think, the setup that he literally has hacked MTV with his fake satellite thing, like a pirate radio system, and he has like hacked into their broadcast, and then as a result, it is like him sitting at his table just being like, so I don't know, what should we watch? Like
his one line is he
really
just goes
wild to see.
He goes, boy, that sure was a video there.
Yeah, I did love the fact that it's clear in certain moments he knew what video was before, but in other moments he was just like like any sort of generic thing, like, well, thank you for that video.
I feel like it definitely felt like off the cuff and very like loose. It felt like any bit goes, but it felt like he sat down and was like, I have to plan an hour where I'm talking to the camera. Like that was a lot of jokes and a lot of segments that he made. Like, and he has a hamster and he has props and he has that that TV that like the manual TV with the news where instead of a screen it's like paper and like it screws up a bunch of times.
That was when they were struggling to get it was the ABBA and Costello bit. They were struggling to get the sheet into the shot, and it's such a great some of the wordplay in this is so good. In specifically focusing on the first one right now, there was two big word plays that killed me in this during his news segments. The one was about the Barbra Streisand movie about a bear that wants to become a Jew, and it was called Yentl Ben.
Yentl Ben, yeah. I wrote that down. I like that a lot too.
I love
and
Yentl
then
Ben.
and then the Elvis Costello ABBA tour, the ABBA and Costello tour, but they're not sure who's going to play first just yet. Like, I was like,
insane.
So good. Just like rapid fire one-liners and puns.
I would, for what it's worth, I would without a doubt go to that show. That's a great double bill.
1,000%.
That's like he's making it like a joke. I feel like that would be a ridiculous tour, but I'm like, sign me up for that,
especially in
please. I am
84.
into it. Oh my god.
Yeah, you're getting all the hits of Costello and none of the like latter years.
I'll even take Elvis Costello and the ABBA holograms on tour if that's what it takes at this point. Whatever it takes, I'll take it.
And Patrick, I have to point out, you mentioned that there was a hamster. That wasn't just any hamster, sir. That was the debut of Harvey the Wonder Hamster.
Yeah. I audibly gasped to myself alone in my living room. I was like, oh my God, that's the first sighting of Harvey. That's incredible.
When he said, I have a hamster here, it's the only thing in my notes that is in all caps. Debut of Harvey the Wonder Hamster.
Because he's in Harvey the Hamster is in UHF too, right?
I don't know if he made it to UHF, but he was a main character on the ALTV show from the 90s, and he wrote a song about him on the Alpalooza record, too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the Weird Al show.
Wow.
Yes.
It's weird because they are similar, but they are, like, it's two different... ALTV is this, which is like the music video thing, and then the Weird Al show came later.
I have no clue when we get to the late 90s and we hit the era that show aired on, like... I don't know if I have it in me to watch the entire run of that show, but maybe we'll just do like a history of.
It'll be interesting. I don't know. I mean, I don't. To be honest, I don't even know how many episodes of Weird Al show ran. I know I've seen a lot of it.
Couldn't be more than 2 seasons.
Right.
Like
yeah,
there was no way it was more than 2 seasons, so it couldn't have been too long. But so he does a couple giveaways. The first one he does is the Weird Al's Lost Weekend getaway, which is that he will basically kidnap you and drop you in the desert where you will be lost for a weekend trying to find your way home.
Yeah, I love that.
Years ago, this is like potentially a huge tangent, but we're not gonna go down it. We're gonna be tempted to, but we're gonna ignore it. Years ago, I used to do this like really intense, like full contact haunted house where you had to sign a waiver first and people would like throw bags over your head and push you into closets and stuff. And Al's description of his Lost Weekend really reminded me of that. Of
Did
like
you work
a
at
basically,
McKinley
like,
Mansion? What the hell are you
No,
talking
not
about?
McKinley Manor. I did Blackout. If you're familiar
Okay.
with
Oh,
Blackout.
I did
Yeah,
Blackout.
I know
a bunch of
Blackout.
times. I could do a whole other podcast just talking about
Yeah, I know.
Blackout.
I was gonna say I went to one of those like 2 immersive haunted houses called the 17th Door in Tustin. Did you ever go to that one?
No.
They like rubbed like a fetal pig on my face. It was like, that was like, and I have
Yeah.
a group text. I don't talk to those people anymore, but every now and then somebody texts that group and says it was a dead baby pig, and that's all we say to each other every like year because we're still traumatized from it.
Yeah, those events are insane. But then I thought, like, watching Al pitch it, I'm like, he was ahead of his time. He didn't realize there actually is a market for this type of thing. People are interested. They want
There's
to
a
be
couple of
abandoned
things.
in the desert. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's true. Yeah.
him hitting the like conspiracy theory stuff to me.
Oh my
I
God.
mean, that was already happening in the 80s, but it felt very like of the now. Like it felt like
Yeah.
very real and relevant in a weird
Can
way.
Yeah,
we?
yeah,
I know I'm
totally.
jumping ahead, but since we're talking about giveaways, can we talk about possibly the joke that aged the worst in this entire bit, which is when he's talking about the requirements for the Al's one night stand, and he starts with applicants must be 12 years or older.
Ooh.
And I was like, ooh, I could feel the gust of wind from that whiff. When he went
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. It is. I mean, well, so all of this stuff, I mean, it is shocking now to watch this and see him making so many, like, essentially, like, sex jokes about, like, he has the joke about, like, send me your fan mail, and he takes out a Polaroid that is, he says, is a woman topless.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, the competition for like best breasts was last week. Sorry, but I'll hang on to this, and puts it in his pocket. Like
Right.
I had seen portions of this before, but I have never seen so much of him delivering that kind of material. It's just so
Oh, it's-
wild to see him be so, I mean, for him, as edgy as I have ever seen him.
Yeah,
And I'm
this is
assuming
the
that
most
has a
blue
lot to do
he's
with
ever
MTV. I was gonna say, I'm assuming that has a lot to do with 80s MTV, where MTV at the time was so like, we are pushing the envelope. We want to be at the cutting edge of all of this stuff, and he was fitting in his own way as best he could. I don't, this is the nature of comedy. We've talked about it before. We will talk about it again. That some of these things just do not age well. Some things age really well. Some things don't. And a lot of this type of stuff is really wild to hear him say.
Yeah, he does such a course correct in the later years. I mean, he
Yeah.
goes so absurd and stays jokey, and that's why to me it's like he's a 24-year-old. This feels like a college show to me. This is him
Yes.
like finding his voice and like playing around, and that's why I'm fascinated by it, because I want to see. That's what I'm obsessed with, is like seeing people before they have their voice. Like I love seeing
yes.
somebody who doesn't quite know where they are, and they're doing sticking. Like one of my things my side things is I've hosted a podcast similar to this podcast about Jimmy Buffett for about 7 years, and I dove
Ooh.
really hard into Jimmy Buffett, and I
Yeah.
looked into everything, and that actually ended up getting me a job on Radio Margaritaville, and I'm a DJ on that as well. Friday nights,
Nice.
come check me out.
Wow.
But that's the kind of person that like he really took a long time to find his like what he did, and there's a lot of experimenting and stuff. But he's the same way. Al is like incredible in that regard, because he clearly finds what sticks, and he follows that from here into the next thing. But it's cool, because that didn't work, and he leaves it, and then he goes with whatever he's doing, and he keeps on with Harvey, which is clear.
Yeah, well, because Patrick, you obviously are more ingrained in the comedy world than Matt and I are, but I think that Matt and I are both big lovers of comedy.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's nothing more than like
Totally.
listening to your favorite comedian's first open mic night. It's they're figuring it out still.
Exactly.
And this is
Oh,
only
absolutely,
a year and a half into him having any ounce of fame. He's still figuring out what is Weird Al, and also like what is his personal ethos about what he's doing. I talk about the one podcast I've been doing for 8 years now, the Horror Movie Night. I was just at a horror convention handing out cards, and we made these little horror movie trading cards. Every year we make a new set of them that are like, here's 6 movies that we covered this year that you should start at. And part of it is like, don't start on our first 2 years when we were like dudes fresh off of Reddit that just thought that we had the edgiest humor in the world before we saw how fucked up people are treated in real life, and realized like maybe like punching down isn't the ideal way to do comedy right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Truly. I mean, there's so many people that have the luxury too of their early years are not recorded. Not nowadays anymore. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has their early stuff online forever, which is a curse. But it's funny that Al, like, this is essentially scrubbed, except for somebody who had a really lucky VHS tape that he put on YouTube and was smart enough to keep the copyright out.
I was going to say exactly that. When we started watching it, the first thing I thought, I'm like, wow, I cannot believe this only exists in such low quality. But then as it played, I was like, I get it. Yeah. Now I understand. This is not like, there are portions of this, and like you, Matt, I think I had seen like a best of moments of ALTV over the years, because you can consolidate it down to some of these like the finer moments. And again, as this goes on, he starts to hit, especially in the later years, some real like critical, like very, very popular things he has done in this context. But in this time period, yeah, I mean, a lot of this is, I mean, I'm sure if you were Al and MTV was like, we want to re-release ALTV, you'd be like, that's okay. You don't have to.
Well, I mean, I think one of the most I would say the most iconic moment from the first episode is the toast. Like, I've seen that clip 1,000 times where he pops out the toast that has his name burned in it and starts singing like the MTV notes as he's using Cheese Whiz to spray the TV onto it. Like, that's such a simple bit. But that, again, like you were saying, Patrick, like that feels like in the moment he's like, can we get a piece of toast and put my name in it and I'll just like do this thing real quick? Like, you can almost tell what was the written punny stuff and what was the just like throwing shit at the wall and deciding if it was going to be funny enough.
Absolutely. Not. And I know we'll get to it, but like the Boy George thing, that's the thing that I'd seen before I watched this. And the out of context interviews are clearly like, and I would love to know if other people had done those up to this point, or if those were like, if that was a thing that he really thought of, because it became a calling card for him in TV.
Yeah, that's a great question. You're right. I don't know. I feel like I have never seen anyone else do this, at least not before Al.
Not in 84. 84 feels early for that bit.
It really does.
The only thing that I can think of, and it's not exactly the same, would probably be like Dickie Goodman. Right? Like Dickie Goodman doing those like Mr. Jaws records where it's like he's doing an interview and it's all samples from famous songs as the responses.
We are here on the beach where a giant shark has just eaten a girl swimmer. Well, Mr. Jaws, how was it? Dynamite! And what did she say when you grabbed her?
Please, mister, please.
I know sharks are stupid, but what did you think when you took that first bite?
How sweet it is.
Mr. Jaws, before you swim out to sea, have you anything else to say?
Which he does a little bit of that. Actually, the Boy George interview is strictly okay in my book in this one, but what I felt was more of a precursor to what his interview edits would eventually become is him asking Billy Idol who his favorite stooge is, and it cuts to him doing the mo mo mo
mo mo mo.
I love that.
I was like, oh, that's good.
Yeah, that is very good. Like, yeah, that was something he filed away and went back to a bunch of times. Yeah. No, it is true, because you're right. It's a good point. These two episodes, the first one is Boy George, and then the second one is Adam Ant.
Right. Which I think the Adam Ant one has better bits in it, though.
It has better bits, but you can definitely tell in both of these that this is like, it's one of those, again, it's a proof of concept kind of, like he's trying it out. This is clearly a good idea, and I think he knows, but boy, do these get so much funnier and better as they go along down there. Like, these are almost too straight in so many ways. Like, he's almost not being absurd enough with the concept in these. Like, the Adam Ant one is funnier, and it's wild to me that he did Adam Ant. Like, there's a lot of references in these as well that blow my mind just because of the time period. Like, it's crazy hearing Al talk about very 80s specific things that do not get mentioned so much anymore, like Adam Ant or Marshall Crenshaw, and like,
well,
so
let's wrap up episode 1 real quick. The only other thing that I had written down, it's a classic bit. It's definitely not something Al created, but it's one that will always make me laugh. Is the whole Michael Jackson video premiere bit where it's just him slowly just damaging this footage. Trying to get it to play. It's like, it's so classically funny.
Yeah, that is great. I mean, you see it coming a mile away, but it's still very satisfying to watch. Like, here we have the one copy they sent us to premiere. And of course he drops it, and while trying to fix it, for some reason he's eating pizza simultaneously.
But I loved the agent doing the music video.
That's in part 2.
Oh, is that episode 2?
Oh my God, we'll get into that.
We got to get to that, but that's
okay.
gold.
That's melded together. Okay, great.
Another reference. The thing that made me laugh the most in episode 1 was, I think it's a shot from the Owner of a Lonely Heart video, which also, side note, I thought was interesting. He references that, and then that appears in a polka on
The
his next
year, I
record.
think. Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
He winds up putting that into a polka.
He also makes the girls just want to have fun joke.
Yes,
which
there's
is,
a few references here of things that then come down later on. Yeah.
That's funny.
But I think it's that video where it's someone sliding down a ladder. Like that happens in the video, and he was like, "Oh, we have an outtake. Like apparently on the first take, they didn't like grease the ladder properly." And it cuts to him doing it again, and he just the sound effect laid in on top of him, just going ah, like screaming in pain while sliding down the ladder. Like that got a genuine LOL out of me. I loved that.
I even laughed at I don't even know what the David Bowie music video is he's talking about, but it's like, oh, look at him getting those fashion critics in there, and he just like dubs in the sound as they're like stomping on stuff, being like, ugh.
Yeah, it was so.
Yeah, all the wacky sound effects on top of the videos are just all of those are so good.
He did a bit in each episode where he goes, "I love that thing," and it's like the first episode is where he's like the guy doing this on his arm.
Oh yeah,
play that again. Like he's obsessed with something that is meaningless.
I actually wrote down for part 2. Man, he's already repeating a lot of bits.
Yes,
there's a lot of bits repeat in episode 2, but I do love that so much. Can we watch it again? Can we watch it? They're telling me we got to move on. Like again, that's great comedy.
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you come in. I'm Shane O'Hare of the Geekscape Games Podcast, the #1 video game podcast on the Geekscape.network. Join myself, Derek Krenevelt, and a guest every fortnight as we discuss video game news, video game reviews, and dissections. That's Geekscape Games every 2 weeks on Geekscape.net.
So a little bit of a wizard behind the curtain for the people listening to Weird Algorithm. In my original plan, we were going to do ALTV Volume 1, and then we were going to talk about a deep cut, hard to find Weird Al track, and then we would do Volume 2. And the deep cut Al track, according to the Al Wikipedia, was a song called I Guess That's Why They Call It the Zoo, which was a parody of I Guess That's Why They Call It the Blues. Then I came to find out that this deep cut Al track is that he has sang just that line with no additional lyrics at concerts. So here's my 1 second mention that apparently, according to Weird Al's Wikipedia pages, there's a song called I Guess That's Why They Call It the Zoo that was important enough to get its own page.
Wait, he just did that? He didn't like name a single zoo animal or anything?
Nope.
Wow.
So now that that's out of the way, ALTV number 2.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I have one more note about episode 1. There's that brief moment where he brings out the manualist, the guy who does the hand farts.
Yes.
Who I think is the actual guy who does it on his records. I
think
don't
so too,
know his
yeah.
name. I feel like I should, but he is definitely the same guy who pops up many years later in the music video for Headline News.
Okay. Then yeah, it's probably his guy.
That is the first time I have seen him in any of these things. He's appeared on records. Again, I'm assuming it's the same guy, but as soon as I saw his face, suddenly I had a flashback to that video. I'm like, oh my God, that is definitely the same dude.
I tried really hard to find who these actors were. I would did a big IMDb dive, and I could not find a lot of these people.
This is going into episode 2 a little bit, but the person who pops up who says his name is Mr. Ferguson, who just screams like a maniac at the camera. He's like, "It's me, Mr. Ferguson." He just kind of yells like a lunatic.
He's
and
like,
then it goes
naked
away.
ladies, ha ha ha.
Yeah, naked ladies. Rah! Like he looked. The first thing I thought, because his face is painted a little bit, he looked like Tom Kenny.
I thought that for a second too. Yeah.
But for a second, I was like, holy shit, did Al get Tom Kenny in the 80s to do this? Because it's not impossible.
Wouldn't have been crazy. No.
But
and
I'm pretty sure
the guy
it's
that
not
did
him.
the commercial for cigarettes, too, I thought was Tom Kenny.
Yeah.
We also, we'll brush past it real quick, but in episode 1, there's a bunch of different coffee commercials that remind me how, as a child, I really thought coffee affected people much differently than it actually turns out to affect people.
Yeah, it was funny. It does seem like Al did not like coffee at this point. He is really coffee drinkers are taking a beating in this episode.
So, episode 2, we got to dive into it because Patrick already called it out. this State of Shock music video, it's so long but so funny for all like 3.5 minutes of
Honestly,
It's
without
crazy.
a doubt, the best laugh I had of the entire time watching this.
It's a full sketch.
Oh
It's
my
great.
God. The setup of him being like, we have the video, and then it cuts to the guy. I honestly thought that the YouTube stream I was watching had an old commercial still edited in. Because it's this guy talking on the phone, and all of a sudden he's like, oh, I gotta go. And he puts the phone down, and he just starts singing State of Shock while doing his own ba-ba-ba-ba-ba.
They told me I should read this letter before I play it. Dear Al, hope you enjoy the new State of Shock video. We here at Epic Records consider it a great privilege that you are world premiering it on ALTV. We did have a problem, however. We couldn't get Mick Jagger or Michael Jackson to appear in the video. But we wanted a video real bad, so we just did the best we could. Yours truly, Harvey Leeds Epic Records. Da 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 da. You gotta be mine. Da 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 da. You're just so fine. Da 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 da. I like your style. Da 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 da. It makes me wild. Da 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 da.
And then as soon as he does that, the Chiron appears at the bottom corner, says the video.
God.
Like, that is...
Well,
What was his name? What did the agent say his
Harvey
name was?
Leeds or something like that. It was like,
Leeds.
it was
love
so I was like, I cannot believe this is still on. Like in any other circumstance, they would get to the first chorus and then that would be the end of it. But they do the whole song, single shot, no cuts.
No cuts.
Smoke
He
coming
starts
out of
the drum
nowhere.
beat. Yeah, he
Yeah.
starts the drum beat at one point, and then the smoke machine turns on, and then the lights kind of go to red. It's like they forgot, like they're making the video as it goes. Honestly, for people watching this, like you have to watch that. For if you're
best.
gonna watch any part of this, that is so good.
I
the
know that
best.
we've talked about this before on this show, Matt, but like that moment, that specific moment, I could imagine in New York City, like a young Thomas Lennon, Ken Marino, Michael
Without a
Showalter, all watching that and being like, that's what sketch comedy is. And like
Honestly,
a decade
it is
later
like,
getting to do
yeah.
the State and just being like, this is what we want to do. We want to do what ALTV's been doing for the last 10 years.
Yeah, no, it is amazing how like absurdist and oddball these little sketch comedy moments he is making are in this. Like it's really something. That one is crazy because again, obviously Saturday Night Live existed at this point. It's not like there is sketch comedy out there in the world, but this is really absurd and really far out there. Like it has more in common with, like you just said, things like The State or Mr. Show or any of that kind of stuff that came years later.
And it takes a step away from his voice in a way, which is, I always see his voice is like a direct one-to-one parody. It's like, this is
Yes.
Al's version of MTV. This is Al's version of, like whatever, like
Madonna,
a virgin. You know what I mean?
Nirvana,
Like
yeah.
it's everything. It's
Yeah.
like it's Al's like, so it's like this one was like a lead up with a premise and a build to it that was like very specifically like a comedy sketch.
Yeah.
That was a
Well,
departure
espe-
from what he does. Which I thought was
Especially because so much of it, even when he's throwing to other people, it still is Al's voice. You know, like
Yeah.
he'll play a cassette tape and he's like, oh, here's like a rare recording of the audition of a thing. But it's
Right.
just Al's voice on the tape. Like, this is
Right.
legitimately, he came up with an idea and assigned someone else to film it for him.
Totally.
Like,
Totally. Yeah.
I mean, it,
And
it
in
almost
that
sucks that
sense-
it's so early because it makes the next like 30 minutes hard to even compare it to.
It does.
It's such
It
a
does.
peak.
It does. But I was going to say, watching this also, like, you really, at least when I was watching it, I was like, this really does now feel like the prototype for what became UHF. I mean, he is, the way that he's hitting these little sketches and bringing in people, like that bit with him making the music video is so UHF. It's
That's
so
very
easy to
UHF.
envision, like, oh, we're going to cut to this guy, and it's someone doing some ridiculous bit just apropos of nothing. And then it's back to Al, like, okay, great. Well, thanks for that. Like, that's so,
Exactly.
like, it was wild to see. I never thought of it through that lens before this.
Speaking of the UHF thing, the other thing I wrote down is that this does the Weird Al When Doves Cry parody 5 years before the UHF music video.
Yes.
but nails it even better because it's that long build up and then the immediate music drop as he takes the robe and just goes, "Thank you." Like completely killing the tension.
I loved that. That was so funny.
Yeah.
I felt like part 2 had points that were so much better than part 1, but I feel like I also took way less notes than I did for part 2.
Yeah, like you said, it hits a lot of the same beats. So it does a lot of the same bits as the first one does, but it does most of them a little bit better.
I'm curious to see how many ALTVs he does the same Jerry Lewis joke.
The same Jerry
That's what
Lewis.
I love the Jerry Lewis
nice
joke.
lady. Like, I want that to be still happening in the 90s. Like, I want us to be like just
hope so.
constantly getting
That
to the
killed me.
same punchline.
That
Yeah.
absolutely killed me.
Yeah, I do love, and it was funny because we talked about it a little bit earlier, like the sort of cringiness of the contest, the one night stand with Al. That
Right.
comes back in this a little bit, but he literally does the one night stand joke and picks a winner and names her by name, Trixie Hazy, who he says is the winner of the contest, who's going to come over and again in a currently problematic turn of phrase says that they're going to drink blueberry daiquiris and then see what happens, which is pretty tough.
Pretty tough. But I also like the bit that he draws one name first and goes,
I love
nah.
he pokes at name. He's like, and the winner is nah, throws it away, and then picks another.
Well, I think too, like, I mean, the angle that he's going with, probably, I would say, if he were to defend himself in the '80s, be like, what's funny about this is I'm a loser, and so I suck and I'm lame, and so what's funny about this is like this would
Totally,
would never happen.
And he is doing a parody of a thing that MTV used to do constantly back then. These types of contests and giveaways with kind of bizarre prizes. And
I think we've talked about the Little Pink Houses one, which is my
we have
absolute
talked about the
favorite
Little Pink Houses thing. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the Pink
No,
Houses?
not at all.
giveaway?
What is that? Yeah.
It's our little dream house, the MTV Party House. You win it. You own it. Like it or not. It's smack in the middle of the heartland. Bloomington, Indiana, hometown of John Cougar Mellencamp. And oh yeah, you have to paint it pink. Little pink house, you can be the grand prize winner and proud owner of the world's first rock and roll estate. And we'll even throw in a housewarming party. Just call up 25 of the wrong people and we'll fly everybody in for the weekend. John Cougar Mellencamp is your barbecue chairman. And later that night,
the house band's gonna be me, and I'm gonna be playing right in your brand new living room.
Even later, there's a private screening of Universal's new movie, Streets of Fire.
That's crazy.
It was insane.
The tax implications alone are staggering. It's like what a nightmare contest to win. No. It's a huge burden to win this contest. I really think, like you said, it's two things. I think he's making fun of the whole idea of it and the fact that he's the dorky guy, and it's like, you win a weekend with me. Like, that's the joke. And I totally get that that's the joke. It's just some of the phrasing that he uses is just like, in a million years, no one would say it that way now. It's
I think
a little too far.
The other thing that's kind of crazy to think about is that this one is September 3rd, 1984, right? So we're looking 6-ish months since the first ALTV. There are so many callbacks to a thing that happened 6 months ago that is like really putting a lot of hope and faith that his audience loyally remembered these previous bits.
It's interesting because this also was like, you're counting on people to remember the bits, but also it kind of works because this is a time period, I mean, as evidenced by this video quality, no one really was thinking about people watching this again. It was a one-shot deal. He did this, and it was over. Like, there was no re-airing ALTV. Like, he never thought it was going to be archived and revisited. This was like, oh, that went pretty well. Let's do it again, and hitting those same marks again. It's like, how many people are going to watch it twice? If they watch it twice, they're going to get the callback. If they don't, the joke worked the first time, it'll work again the second time.
Right. That's how it felt to me, where he was like, I don't know. Or my thought was like, if they greenlit it for like, you'll do April Fool's Day because we're a new network, we're trying shit out. If we're not playing you, we're playing music videos, and that's about it right now. If they were like, that was fun, we have some more space in September, we'll just give you another one. And then they kept kind of doing that. That's kind of how it felt to me, where it's like, well, this is pretty low res. There's not a lot of stuff for us to do. We don't really have to, he has his thing and he'll go write an hour and fill an hour. And that's something I miss. I miss kinds of shows like this where people fill an hour. I guess they're podcasts now, to be honest. But like, it's
kind of true.
Just being on TV and just being like, well, we're here and we have an hour and we're doing this. Like, I missed.
We've got an hour. What are we gonna do? What should we do? Yeah, I totally agree with you.
I loved the pace of those kinds of shows, and it was so comforting to watch those.
Yeah.
I was trying to see if there was never a consistent date, because like April 1st makes the most sense. Here's the weirdest one. Well, not the weirdest one, but the most on the nose one beyond April 1st is ALTV 5 was aired on April 20th, 1988, which, I mean, was 420 a thing in 1988 to the point that they're like, this is what those stoners are going to be watching at midnight on MTV.
That's a great question, Matt. I have no idea. The origins of 420, I don't know.
Yeah, but there's, because I was like, maybe like September, I don't know what September 3rd's importance was for it. And I was like, maybe, when's Al's birthday? Like, I was like trying to figure out anything to explain it.
But even, I'm looking at this episode list right now too on Wikipedia. Like ALTV 1, this April 1st, 1984, 4 hours. So we're watching like 1 hour of it. I didn't realize he was doing 4 hours and then 4 hours and then 4 hours. Like the first 3 episodes
4 hours.
Are 4 hours of this.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, whoever cut these together presumably tried to get as much of the actual meat of what he was doing.
Right.
Because there probably was huge sections where they just showed videos and cut to commercials and stuff. And then he would come back as like a VJ. Like, there probably is some stuff that's missing here, but I'm sure whoever did it was like trying to grab anything that was like of enough value.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
Another thing from episode 2 that I had forgotten about, I just saw in my notes, is I like the recurring bit about the solar-powered gadgets that you wear on your head.
Dude,
I
the
love
blender
that.
commercial
The infomercial,
killed me.
the solar-powered helmet, and then the solar-powered blender.
The deprivation tank helmet.
The solar-powered sensory deprivation tank. But my favorite thing about each one is at the end is like, it's great, it does everything you need, and it won't make you look like a jerk. Every single one ends with that, like, or it's you won't look like a jerk wearing it. Like, just that is the final selling point. Every time that came up, I laughed again.
So good.
I do want to call out the Adam Ant interview. There was one line that, I mean, most of it got a pretty good chuckle out of me, but when he says, Adam, can you tell me what time it is? And he just goes, I think it's the 80s. And I was like,
I love that.
That's
good.
like where you're like,
good.
that's what I come to remember the interviews to be, is the most absurd answer to a simple question using those interview clips.
Yeah, it's so good.
Oh, this is also something I noticed that I am embarrassed because I should know this and I don't. They show in this snippet the very end of the music video for the song Ghostbusters.
Yes.
And Al is in it. Is Al actually in the Ghostbusters video?
No.
Okay.
I
honestly
wrote,
couldn't tell because it seemed like at the end they were it seemed like at the end they were cutting just to random people like singing Ghostbusters, and for a moment I was like, I could believe that they put Al in this video as an actual cameo. He makes the joke of like, oh, that's a great video. I especially love the cameos. And I couldn't tell if it was just a joke for the show or if he actually was in that video.
Yeah, no, it's so the joke there, which I think is kind of an underwhelming joke because it was too long. I think he probably legitimately played the music video Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
Because throughout the video, every time they yelled Ghostbusters, they would cut to a different like SNL alum yelling Ghostbusters.
Yelling Ghostbusters.
But it looks like he just added himself to every single one of those in place of their cameos.
Right.
And in my mind, I'm almost like, but it just based on how this video was edited. So I could be wrong.
Yeah.
He could have done it throughout the entire video, which if that's the case, it's hilarious. The way that this is edited, it feels like it's
I wish that existed.
just,
yeah,
like it looks like it's just added to the end, which it's like you either do it once or you do it the whole time. But like just doing it a couple times at the end doesn't really hit correctly to me. But not my favorite of the joke.
It's even interesting to think about, like, I feel like nowadays, if anyone was like, oh, I have this funny bit where I'm going to put myself into your music, like, I don't think you'd be allowed to do that. I feel like MTV now would be like, you can't change the music video for Ghostbusters and insert yourself into it as a joke. We're going to get sued completely. Like, there's no way.
We'll get to it, but I distinctly remember the Bad Hair Day one specifically. All of the bumpers throughout that entire ALTV special is just the snippet of the alternative polka with the actual music video playing over top of it. So it'd be like Bullet with a Butterfly Wing just sped up enough so that Billy Corgan's lips matched Al singing the Despite All My Rage. Like that was so I know that he did continue to like fuck around with the music videos for the bumpers and stuff, but
yeah, and I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe it still would be fine. I just feel like I never see people do that nowadays.
Well, I never see people make music videos
This was a very like
anymore,
Wild
so
West
that's
scenario. Well, that's true. Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of this at all is so archaic now. But him being allowed to like change the audio or video to a music video, even presenting like the State of Shock video is like, oh, here we have the new video. Like it's obviously a joke, but truly, they tried to show it as if it was completely real. I was like, wow, I don't know. It just feels like nobody was asking for permission for anything in the process of making this. Like, let's just do it and see what happens.
Well, this continues our theory that the first like 2 or 3 years of Weird Al, he is more punk rock than anybody playing at CBGBs.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Because it's just like him shitting on it. It's like, to me, it's like, it's the lens of like, you doing this thing makes you cool, but me doing this makes that thing lame, and I just ruined your thing. Like, I think that's like a thing he does where it's like, and I think it's fun and it's hilarious where he's like, this thing that everyone's obsessed with, I just made it dorky. And I think that's why I resonate with it so much, where it's like he reclaims these cool things and he makes you feel like, I don't know. He just like pokes fun at something that you didn't think you could. Like
it's
I love him.
Yeah, totally. You're right. It's like the taking the piss out of it element of like it's so whenever I think of like punk, the idea of punk and the ethos of punk, like the example I always use is like, you know, the hey, one hit wonder fun fact, did you know like Chumbawamba is the most punk ass band that's ever existed? And people are like the I Get Knocked Down and I Get Up Again band. And it's like, yeah, those dudes were like hardcore anarchistic punks who like when GM paid them $2 million to use one of their songs in a car commercial, they then reallocated the $2 million to a nonprofit to do a full examination on the business practices of GM. Like that is like the most punk thing I could possibly imagine.
That's cool as hell.
Is using a company's money that they paid you to fuck over that company. Like that's
badass.
Awesome.
Big
but
time.
like that's kind of what Al's doing here is that MTV's like, hey, this Eat It video is doing really well. Do you want to host the thing on April Fool's Day? And he's like, I hope you understand I'm going to spend 4 hours mocking what your channel stands for. Like,
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that bit too with the Paul is dead, where it was Paul Simon and not Paul McCartney.
Dude, when he holds up the Abbey Road record and it's the shittiest taping of Paul Simon's head over Paul McCartney's face.
I loved that. It was so funny.
He also,
and I didn't know that conspiracy theory was that old either. I didn't know that has been
Oh
the
yeah,
since
that
the
goes
80s.
back a long time. Yeah,
that was
crazy.
As the Beatles were a band, I'm pretty sure the Paul is dead theory
I think
was
it goes
already
back that
happening.
far. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, that is like I think that's the end of episode 1, and I love it's just like a dumb little joke, but I love at the end of that he's like, so on that note, rest in peace, Paul Simon, and I just know that wherever you are right now, you're probably watching ALTV. That's again like such a great joke, just a perfect joke. Excellent.
I love that. It's so good.
These were great. I'm excited to watch more of these in the coming episodes. Next week, we will be officially kicking off the Dare to Be Stupid tracks to discuss. But Patrick, you will certainly be back on the show in the future. But in the meantime, where can people check out some of not just your comedy, but I mean, SMOSH is massive.
It's pretty large.
Yeah.
Heck
You
yes.
can go to YouTube. All of our stuff is on SMOSH. I'm like the creative director of Sketch over there right now. So if you go to our main channel, there's a lot of videos I'm in on that as well. And then some other stuff that I do. I have an improvised like Hollywood Roundtable podcast called Artists on Artists on Artists on Artists. And we just pick like a different topic every week and bullshit for an hour as agents or Foley artists or Guy Fieri's location scouts or whatever. You can check that out. I have a podcast called the Parrot Head Podcast, and I'm on Radio Margaritaville talking about Jimmy Buffett all the time. And my Instagram is Patrick. That's 4 Patricks, and then Twitter on Patrick McDonald with a 0 instead of an O. And that's it.
I do have to ask, favorite Jimmy Buffett song?
Oh boy. I think first of all, I want to say there's a lot of similarities between Weird Al and Jimmy Buffett because
I agree.
Jimmy's trying to be funny a
Very
lot of the
much so.
time. and I respect that a lot out of him.
I actually respect that Jimmy jumps from being really, really funny to like some of his songs are heartbreakingly beautiful at the same
they're
time.
Like very sincere. He's very heartfelt, very thoughtful guy. I would say my favorite Jimmy Buffett song is probably like from the big ones, like Son of a Sailor, and then there's a deeper cut called 12-Volt Man that I love, which is very sweet and thoughtful.
Ooh, I love Son of a Sailor. I don't know 12-Volt Man. I'm going to look that up.
It's really good. He actually made an acoustic album last year during the pandemic where he just played a lot of his deep cuts on a guitar and like stripped it all down, and it's really good. So it's called Songs You Don't Know by Heart. So if you want to,
I love that. That's
nice.
Hilarious. I also. I don't know what it is. I don't like the ocean. I hate the ocean, to be honest. But for some reason, a pirate turns 40, like, gets me every time. Like, every time I hear that song, I get choked up. It's a beautiful song.
I think he's not trying to take himself too seriously. He's also just kind of like, if you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. And, everyone that says, like, I hate Jimmy Buffett, I'm like, okay.
Yeah. No, that Songs That You Know by Heart record is, like, one of the most perfect greatest hits records. Like,
oh, my God, it's incredible.
If you don't walk away from that at least a little bit of a fan, then you're probably never going to like him. But
I know. And he released his greatest hits album 30 years ago. That's insane to me. Like, it's like
that is very impressive.
It's nuts.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Patrick.
Yes,
and
thank you.
Guys, we'll be back to our rankings starting next week. Kicking off Dare to Be Stupid. Could it be our favorite album? Well, we'll find out in 3 or 4 years' time, I guess.
Oh my God. Yeah.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.